Welcome to the Deep Dive. I am thrilled to have you here with us today, especially you, the learner, joining us for what is, honestly, a pretty wild exploration.
Yeah, it really is. We have a fantastic stack of sources today.
We really do. We're looking at this fascinating document titled The Known Mistake. And it basically acts as this masterclass on ego, humility, and the actual daily mechanics of living well.
Right, and what's so compelling about it is the sheer breadth of where it pulls from.
Exactly. I mean, we're spanning centuries here. We've got ancient thinkers like Seneca and Aristotle.
We have spiritual texts like the Dhammapada.
Yeah, the Dhammapada, the poetry of Rumi. And then, it completely shifts gears into martial arts with Bruce Lee.
And even modern figures. We're talking Lionel Messi, Ryan Holiday, Naval Ravikant. It's just this incredible cross-section of human thought.
Is massive. And the core theme, the hook that brings all these totally disconnected disciplines together is this old Arab proverb from the text.
It says, a known mistake is better than an unknown truth.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because on the surface, settling for a mistake, I mean, that sounds defeatist, right?
That sounds like you're just giving up.
Yeah, throwing in the towel on finding the ultimate answer.
Yeah.
But if you look at how humans actually operate, we don't travel through life guided by absolute certainty.
No, not at all. We travel by recognition.
Right. We find our footing not by arriving at some perfect truth, but by getting honest about the places where we consistently trip over our own feet. So for you listening today, the goal isn't to walk away with a flawless formula for the universe. It's to get comfortable with the things you don't yet know.
And that fundamental shift in perspective, it changes everything about how we process information.
It really does.
If we start with the first major theme we're looking at, which is the trap of the ego, we have to look at the observations of Michael Faraday.
The 19th century scientist.
Exactly. And Robert Greene builds heavily on Faraday's ideas in our notes. Faraday, despite being this absolute titan of discovery, noted this deeply humbling reality about his own field. He basically said the human mind is simply too weak, too limited, to ever have a perfect vision of reality.
Right, because even the absolute greatest theories.
They're eventually altered or just entirely disproven. What feels like a fresh, undeniable scientific truth today will almost certainly be revised in a few decades.
Robert Greene points this out so perfectly. He talks about how we all have a good laugh at our ancestors, the ones who confidently believed the Earth was only 6,000 years old.
Or that the sun revolved around us.
Yeah. We sit here with our smartphones and satellite imagery feeling incredibly advanced.
What's fascinating here is the core danger this exposes. It isn't just about being scientifically inaccurate, it's about the mechanics of the ego itself.
Right, because we have to hold beliefs to function.
Exactly. The error isn't in whitting beliefs. The profound danger is when the ego fuses with the idea. When that fusion happens, challenging your belief no longer feels like an intellectual exercise. It feels like a direct personal attack on your identity.
So while we're busy laughing at our ancestors, we avoid the much more uncomfortable question, what are our descendants going to inevitably laugh at us for? Which is a tough pill to swallow. I actually want to ask you, the listener, to think about that right now. Look at your own deeply held beliefs, the ones you argue about online, the ones that dictate your worldview. Which of those ideas are you defending because they are objectively true? And which ones are you defending simply because they are yours?
That is the crucial question. Because Greene's ultimate conclusion reminds us that you are always knowledge's inferior.
If you let your ego fool you into thinking you've reached the finish line, you just freeze yourself in place.
That is exactly why the proverb hits so hard. Acknowledging a mistake is the actual beginning of wisdom, whereas an unknown truth hidden behind pride is just walking blindness.
Walking blindness. That is such a striking phrase. And if the ego is this massive obstacle keeping us in that state of blindness, the solution is kind of the exact opposite of our natural instincts.
It really is. In modern culture, when we feel inadequate, our instinct is to acquire more. We try to read more, consume more data, add more layers to our armor.
But the consensus across all these sources is that the real work isn't adding, it's the art of subtraction. We see this through some beautiful imagery. The Sufi poet Rumi says, be like melting snow. Wash yourself of yourself.
And Bruce Lee's famous directive aligns perfectly with that. Be like water. Empty your cup.
We're being told to systematically let go of this hardened crust of self-definition. But I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Sorry.
I struggle with this idea. If I completely wash myself of myself, don't I lose the ambition that got me out of bed this morning? If I'm just melting snow, how do I function in a high-stakes environment? It sounds like a recipe for becoming a pushover.
It's a very common reservation. But to understand what they mean by empty, we have to synthesize these ideas with the Buddhist Dhammapada and the Roman Stoic Seneca.
Two wildly different traditions.
Wildly different, but they both emphasize a profound shared connection among all living things. The Dhammapada observes that all creatures fear pain and death, urging us to recognize our own reflection in every living being.
And Seneca echoes this from Rome.
Yes. Seneca states that nature created us all related to each other, built from the exact same material. Because of this shared origin, he argues there is a mutual love planted somewhere within all of us. Emptying the cup isn't about erasing your personality.
Right. They aren't telling you to become nothing.
They're telling you to become available. A cup that's already full of stagnant water can't take in anything new.
Yeah.
When you empty the ego, you aren't losing your edge. You're creating the capacity to connect to the world and to a larger truth.
Here's where it gets really interesting. If you view emptying the ego through that lens, the act of saying I was wrong completely transforms.
It stops being a humiliating defeat.
Exactly. It becomes a literal physical act of making room in your own mind. You're actively clearing space on the shelves for better information. But this brings up another tension in the text.
The demand for strength.
Yeah. If we are supposed to be soft and empty like melting snow, why do these same philosophies demand rigorous strength? We have Wim Hof insisting we must intentionally sacrifice comfort to strengthen the mind.
And Aristotle's famous realization, through discipline comes freedom.
Right. So how do we reconcile being empty and soft with being highly disciplined and hardened?
It looks like a paradox, but in practice, they're two halves of the same mechanism. The discipline Aristotle and Wim Hof talk about doesn't refill your cup with ego. It strengthens the vessel itself.
The vessel.
Think of it this way. If you empty yourself of your rigid defenses and ego, you become incredibly open, but also incredibly vulnerable. The discipline is what keeps you from collapsing when that emptying occurs. You have to be strong enough to hold the emptiness without panicking and rushing to fill it back up with cheap validation.
That creates a very specific inner posture. It really brings to mind Naval Ravikant's idea that calm equals effective.
And John Wooden's advice to his basketball players?
Be quick, but don't hurry.
Those two quotes capture the essence of a strong vessel perfectly. When you have the discipline to keep your ego out of the equation, you don't have to hurry. You can evaluate a situation clearly and act swiftly without the emotional baggage of wondering how you look to everyone else.
So for the listener, think about that in the context of your own daily life. Imagine walking into a stressful meeting or a difficult conversation and just not being anxious. Imagine not feeling the desperate need to prove yourself and just operating with that calm but alert, relaxed but ready posture.
It's powerful, but flipping that switch doesn't happen overnight. It requires a long game.
It really does. Which brings us to the practical application. How do we actually do this? Mark Twain had timeless advice here. The secret to getting ahead is getting started. And the secret to getting started is breaking complex tasks into manageable ones.
And Art Collier echoes this, calling success the sum of small efforts repeated daily.
We see this perfectly with Lionel Messi, one of the most gifted athletes in history. His driving ambition in the text wasn't to be the greatest of all time or break every record. His mindset was simply to get better and better.
That is the power of the known mistake. You aren't leaping toward perfection. You're just fixing the small errors of yesterday.
Direction matters so much more than distance.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, there is a beautiful Spanish reflection in our sources that compares time to a field. A farmer goes out, puts seeds in the earth, and then he waits.
He doesn't yell at the seed for growing slowly.
Exactly. He trusts the process. Yet when it comes to our own growth, we rarely treat ourselves with that grace. We want the harvest instantly. And Seneca delivers a sharp warning on this exact point regarding how we value our time.
The idea that we guard our money fiercely, but give away our time freely.
Yes. He observes that we lock our doors and check our bank statements, but we let anyone steal our time. It's the one commodity where it is actually respectable, even necessary, to be entirely greedy.
That is a gut punch. We leave the front door to our calendar wide open for anyone's manufactured emergencies.
And guarding that time becomes even more critical when we transition into the messy, unavoidable realities of life. Because eventually, life provides a moment where the ego's illusion of control is forcibly stripped away from you.
Yes, the sandbox of unavoidable reality. I love this part. David Brooks has this great anecdote about a friend messaging him when his son was born. The message just said, "Welcome to the world of unavoidable reality."
And Ryan Holiday unpacks what this actually looks like. The biggest shock with a child isn't just the lack of sleep. It's the absolute discovery that you are no longer the center of your own world.
Your schedule is completely dictated by a toddler's nap. If they are having a tough morning, you are having a tough morning.
This is Bruce Lee's be like water philosophy made inescapable. The ego doesn't dissolve gently in a philosophy seminar. It dissolves in sandboxes and school plays.
Nothing destroys the stoic mind faster than a toddler with nowhere to be.
But Holiday's conclusion about this loss of control is brilliant. He doesn't frame it as a burden, he says it is wonderful. Because having your priorities completely reorganized by love instead of your own ambition is the most reliable route out of the self.
Which leads us directly into this incredible parable from Anthony DeMello about our internal environment.
The story of the disciple dreaming of paradise.
Right, a disciple dreams he has finally entered paradise, but to his astonishment, he sees his master and the other disciples just sitting there, meditating exactly as they did on earth.
He's deeply disappointed.
Yeah, he asks if this mundane practice is really the grand reward, and a voice tells him, "You think those meditators are in paradise? It is just the opposite. Paradise is in the meditators."
It's profound.
So what does this all mean? We spend our lives waiting for external conditions to align. We think, once I get the promotion, then I'll have peace.
But the tradition insists on the reverse. The quality of your life isn't determined by what happens to you. It is determined by what you bring to what happens.
And Tolstoy's philosophy on non-reaction fits perfectly here.
It really does. Tolstoy writes that meeting evil with a deep, settled goodness isn't passive. It's a profound strength because it actually kills the evil by starving it of energy.
By offering nothing for the negativity to catch hold of.
Right. If you respond with genuine kindness to hostility, you destroy the pleasure the hostile person derives from it. This is a strength rooted so deeply in that disciplined vessel we talked about that the ego isn't even triggered.
It totally changes the dynamic of any conflict. And Michael LaBouffe and Ernest Hemingway bring this down to an even more practical level. LaBouffe reminds us that we consistently overestimate the size of our problems.
We just need to view them at their actual scale.
Exactly. And Hemingway gives this dead simple advice. If something is wrong and you can fix it, fix it. But train yourself not to worry, because worry fixes nothing. Acknowledging, "I know I am overreacting right now," is a known mistake that brings immediate peace.
It all converges beautifully. When you step back, these centuries of thought point toward what Nikolai Gogol called the one right pathway.
A pathway clearly inscribed in our hearts.
Yes. It's not a productivity system. It's the daily practice of emptying the ego, building character, and staying present.
And T.D. Jakes anchors this idea perfectly. He notes that the world is a university, and everyone in it is a teacher.
Your known mistake is your enrollment form, and the discomfort is your tuition. We are always knowledge is inferior. We are always beginners, and that is the whole point.
It really is.
This raises an important question, though, for the listener to take away. If we are entirely shaped by our daily practice, and if paradise is simply the state we carry within us, regardless of external chaos, what is the one familiar, comfortable, unknown truth you are actively avoiding today, simply because you are afraid of the temporary discomfort required to turn it into a known mistake?
That is a brilliant thought to leave off on. What are you avoiding right now? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. Keep that question with you, stay curious, keep your cup empty, and above all, guard your time wisely. We will catch you on the next one.